All right. Thank you guys for joining us this evening as Patchwork Human Services is presenting another community chat. This evening, I am talking with three wonderful women who are open to sharing their experience of what it has been like to be a single parent. And so tonight, our community chat will be all about single parenting, the highs and lows with regards to it. But before we get started, ladies, I just wanted to kind of dismantle a myth, and that a lot of times people feel that they don't have wiggle room or the right to consider themselves a single parent if the other parent is helping out financially. And so I wanted to make it clear that when we think about, for the sake of tonight's conversation as well, but when we think about single parenting, that we highlight the fact that we are just saying that we carry a bulk of the responsibility, right? And so it's not that we want to step on anyone's toes or that, we don't want to give credit to where credit is due. But if you are the primary caregiver and you are carrying a bulk of the responsibility, to me, you have the right to deem yourself as a single parent. And so I just really wanted to make that clear because I think that sometimes people kind of teeter with that. And again, they feel like, they don't want to offend the other party by considering themselves to be a single parent. And so, do any of you disagree with that, or what are your thoughts behind that?
I agree wholeheartedly. Certain situations that come into play where that other or that missing parent feels as though you don't respect them, at any given time because you don't give them that leeway or that go, on certain things that are needed for, the child, which in fact, in my situation, I mean, I've given, open door, anything that we need to discuss about him, we're good on. But I think where some of them take that toll of I'm not dealing with you, then I'm not dealing with him or her, you know, which I think is a big issue.
Hmm. Extremely big.
It,
Uh, oh, go ahead. Were you about to say something else? Okay. Okay. How about you ladies, Miss Tracy or Keisha?
Um, I agree with what you said. When you define a single parent, I look at it as the day to day, the going to sleep, the waking up, the long hospital visits,
Mhm.
the going to school,
Mm,
having to get them to school, um, the weekends, doing the friend thing, doing the mom bus thing, the after school programs, having to find daycare and babysitter. Yeah, it's wonderful when you have someone that supports financially, but when you have those moments when you kind of look at your calendar and you think to yourself, how am I going to do this? Because either the absentee parent isn't in the same state or even in the same city, and they can't just come and jump in when you need that extra help or support. That's what I consider being a single parent. So it's wonderful to have the financial, but the physical, the emotional, the mental, everything else that comes with it, that's the part that's missing.
mhm.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yes.
I agree with that just because I feel like sometimes some other parents feel like if I send money, it's enough. They need more. They need that time. They need that personal effect of knowing that you understand what they're going to have to understand and know because you're not that on site parent all the time. But they feel like a check goes so far money to do things that you still got to make time to do in the calendar.
Mhm.
So if you still not had the time, you're stretching yourself, and then when you ask for help from them, they're looking at you like you shouldn't need. It goes back to the check again. So I find that I don't think they understand that mental health of ours. Just even if it's just every now and then, or you just take a moment, or you just come. Mine was out of town. He just chose
Mhm.
to be out of town, and if it was to his head, the check came with him. And I'm like, well, why is this the package?
Yes.
Hello?
I couldn't understand my money in the beginning. He was like, "Well, I need to see you." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Then he didn't realize that someone signs up to be a single parent. I would love that worked, but if it was my mental, if I wasn't in a good spot, it doesn't worth. It's not worth taking my child along for a ride. And it's a ride that I couldn't stop or control. They control all the apples in their head because they got the check.
Right.
So the financial thing, sometimes just print money, make it all away. That's how I always felt. I will all go away.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. But you know what, Miss Tracy, you kind of led into my next question. And so even in dismantling, what society deems as a single parent and just trying to clear some things up, the thing I wanted us all to kind of touch on was because nobody gets into a situation and just says, yes, I want to be a single parent. Sign me up. I want to do
Yes.
all of this by myself.
Absolutely not.
Right. And so I wanted to hear from each of you as to how you became a single parent, right? And full transparency, I'll start, but I think that it's imperative, right, that people understand that people fall into single parenthood for a ton of different things, right? Whether it's divorce, whether it's through death, whether it's through the relationship just didn't work out, whether it's through domestic issues in the situation, right? There's a ton of things that kind of happen where a person will wake up and life as they know it has changed. And so for me, I was married really, really young. And with my oldest son, because we were young when we got married, it just didn't work out. The maturation wasn't there, right? And so it's like it just didn't work, right? And so I made the decision to walk away from that marriage because I had promised myself that when I became a parent, I would not raise a child in a situation that was unhealthy, to what you said, right? And that's something that I really stand firm on because I grew up in a household where domestic violence was present. And I never wanted my kids to know what it felt like to be woke up out of their sleep to me and their father or me and my significant other arguing. Like that's a deal breaker for me. My daughter's father, it just didn't work because he was into some things that I wasn't into, right? And so when we think about um certain character traits or certain behaviors or even addictions, right? And it's like, I can't raise my children in that situation, And then with my youngest son, it just didn't work. Like there was a ton of, how do I want to say, I'm trying to be like a little pleasant about it, but it just wasn't the truth, right? It wasn't the truth. And I found myself in this situation where it just was not the truth. So there was no way that anything could have come from that situation. And so again, 3 times around, I find myself raising children by myself, right? And so again, when you said that check, okay, yeah, you could send money, but it takes time, it takes nurturing, it takes showing up, right? And we just, it's a lot of things that we shouldn't have to do when it comes to parenting. And I think that also we kind of fall into the fact that people should just know better. And I think from experience, we could probably agree to disagree that not all people know. And so that's how I ended up in the boat of being a single parent. And so let me hear from you ladies as to what kind of transpired. And you can be as detailed or not as you want to, like, again, even with that, we try to kind of put band-aids over things, but let me hear from you ladies. Miss Tracy's like, I'm not putting a band-aid on
I'm
nothing.
gonna put it
Facts.
out
Like,
there. I'm gonna put it
it's
out
time to
there.
rip the Band-Aid off.
I agree.
It's
I
time.
agree. I agree.
Because
So
I
with
feel
that,
like
I just go ahead.
a single parent, when you think of, I was like you. I got married, I bought the house, had the white picket fence. In my mind, I was in love, that wonderful children. We never talked about it. And I thought I mentioned it, but when they came along, so I became a single parent almost instantly from day one.
Mm.
Feel like you did. You checked all the boxes. You made sure you can afford to have a house. You got a car. You got a career. You checked all the boxes. But then when the gift that you wanted, all you ever wanted was, they just didn't want that box checked. And they don't tell you that. They tell you every out there, and you be like, I want to make this work for the family. A month in, you like, I can't. And if you stay because in your mind, you be like, I can make this work. But you don't want to burn you free. So you start out at this high peak of things and obstacles and things you got to do. Everybody tells you can't. I don't want to be like her. I don't want to have. I don't live outside. It's all these things that you can't accomplish. Young, you're thinking, I can't do it by myself. But you don't want to be that. You don't want to portray too strong because I don't need nobody. So it's like a small spot in your spot. You got to be the strong person, but you got to always on that one person that never lets you down. And it's never that person never comes because he wants to send a check and send you money. Then when they don't want to send money, they want to see you. You're like, oh my God, I can't do this. To me, it's that a great mom, but save yourself.
Yes.
And that's the hardest thing. Or take the dad out. Because that's what it feels like. I feel like I remove. When you do that, you want to be like, well, this is not working. It's your fault. And you be like, but it's not my fault. The best interest of the babies just always just went out the window. And it was one of those things that, he done bought a house for me. I got cars, I got things, everything's great. No, where was the sign? Y'all tell me where the sign. They were like, well, tell me where the sign was. They were like, but you, but they never tell you what you should have known because every person is different. Anything that you want to take the picture to get it. We all guilty of that one. So why can't they have just painted a picture that they knew that they? And that's at the end of the day. I felt some kind of way because as a single, no one signs up and say, I want to be in every weekend. I don't want to. I'm just going to just do everything. Everything I do was on a child. I've been so many colors, paint, because I didn't have any work. Because I was the one with the child. To me, they're like they don't give up anything. But then you gotta, then you can't be bitter about it. So how do you give up everything? You can't be bitter. You gotta love. Why they just send a check? It still keeps going back to me in that check thing.
Yes.
We put off things when we have that child to be okay in a career. But I make enough money. I tell everybody that you almost can't no more. You almost got to make sure you got enough. Sad thing. That if I heard I could get you sent me a check one more time, I'll be hot. Realize that it's so much more to pour into a child every day. It's the mental part. Your dad not here, he don't want to. Now it's not that he don't want to see you, it's because of me. Well, if I would just, you feel like it's your fault that he's not there, but it's to your benefit that you're not there. You as a whole, you couldn't give 100% to that child. And that's what kills it the most, because I wish it would. And then you think about it, if I had did anything else, would I be there? But we don't see that. That single parent thing, a check thing, that check was killing me. So the check, like, I just don't.
Yes.
I'm just going to sit it over there and just let it sit there. So I hated it. Not to the day I did like that. So.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
And I always say, I circle back and I always say a lot of times to individuals, like sometimes there's a blessing in the absence and you don't know it. And especially being a child, right, where the parent is absent. And as the adult in the situation, we know that there's a blessing in it. But a lot of times the kids don't see it or they don't know it until later in life. And so the person who is the primary caregiver also has to deal with the brunt of that. And we'll come back to that. But I just want to like kind of pin that, right? That sometimes there's a blessing in the absence. Keisha, you want to go next? So it's
So,
Keisha and Keisha. So we gotta have something to kind of, separate the two.
well,
You can call me Takesha.
Okay.
all right. Okay, so I'll go. Pretty much it was all of a side. I ain't gonna lie. He came to me, his representative came to me as someone totally different. And of course all the bells and whistles, all the lights and all of that. And of course, yeah, I was starstruck. Okay. Um, we tried, working things out, but it just didn't happen. He wanted to be um up there, and I'm not that reserved one that's gonna sit around and, just keep quiet while you go out there and play, in the field. I'm not doing that. Either we're gonna be together or we're not. And I wound up, pregnant, and as a result of that, it was just me by myself, you know, taking care of my our child while he went out
Mhm.
and frolicked and had fun and had other children. you
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
it's okay because, like, I have to piggyback off what Ebony said. That absence, it didn't it hurt in the beginning. I hurt from my own because I didn't have my father around, so I know how that feels. But after a while, it was like it's okay. I don't have to argue. I don't have we're good. We're good. That peace, honey, that peace is better than anything on this earth.
Wow, you better say
So
that again, girl. Peace.
Amen.
yes,
Peace.
that peace. I'm telling you, not arguing. About silly little things. Just because you want to go out and there and do what you want to do, go. Spread your wings, boo. Spread your wings. I'm good. We good. You know,
Yeah.
whatever I need, God would supply.
Hmm.
We've survived for what, 12 years, almost 13 years. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
You
We'll keep
know,
moving.
Listen.
You right about that.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Mhm. So that acceptance piece too, right? And so just coming to grips with the fact that this person is not going to show up, the fact that this person is unwilling to be
Mhm.
consistent or even committed to the child that they helped to create. And again, I really, was rooting for our single dads that were going to join us this evening because I think too, there's this thing where, again, I can't say it enough, that people feel like when it comes to single parenting, that is always just single moms, but I know a ton of
Yeah.
dads that are stepping up and doing the thing with their children in the absence of that mother. So, Takesha, go ahead. Let us hear from you.
So I have been a mom since I was 18.
Mm.
I was a little girl that grew up without her dad, and I was the kind of person that I was in love with being in love.
Mm,
And, when I got pregnant, I was 17, still in high school, thought I had found the most wonderful person in the world.
yes.
Um, he looked at me differently than everybody else. I had self-esteem issues. Some people won't admit that, but I'm here. So I had self-esteem issues, and he looked at me and he talked to me differently than everybody else. And I guess you can say we grown, right? Talk them good panties right off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
right. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I was like all excited and stuff until I was walking with my then best friend up to her house, and I looked up and saw him and her sister standing on their porch kissing.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, and it was a gut punch.
Yeah.
And then
Hmm.
he like dipped and dodged and dodged and dipped. And then, it was just me and my oldest daughter for a while. And then I met this man, and he was different, and he said all the right things, and we hung out and we had fun. And I was at this point I was 21, And I
Mhm.
had my first place. So my spot was the hangout spot. Everybody wanted to come to my place and hang out and stuff or whatever. And he thought it was so cool, that I was mature enough to have my own place at such a young age. And he portrayed himself to be one way. And I found out the hard way that he was not, and
Mhm.
he was abusive and he was mean when he wanted to be. And he just, he snapped one night and I ended up in the hospital because he hit me in my face with a beer bottle and threw me across a room and, almost broke my arm. And I went to the hospital and boom, there I was in the hospital. And they tell me, you're pregnant. So we can't do this, and this. And I cried because I'm like, here I am pregnant again. This man done beat me up. Like, what am I supposed to do? And, at that point in my life, I didn't believe, in abortions or anything. Like, I still don't believe that it's okay today. But, I was church girl. Like, that just was a no, no, no. In every book, getting pregnant was bad enough. I wasn't going to add to it by, having an abortion on top of that. So, you know, that was baby dad number two. Then,
Mhm.
here I am pregnant. I done had this baby. Now I done met somebody else. And he was this wonderful and fabulous and he was a drug dealer. And he money everywhere. What you want? You want this, you want that, you want this, you want that. And he was showing me something different. Because again, I was a good girl. I went to church.
Mhm.
And, you know, it was kind of a pattern all the way until I moved to Delaware, you know. And when I got married, I was like, yes, this man is awesome. He's owning my kids, and at that point, the doctors was like, oh, you can't have no more. And I was like, oh, I'm good. Because at this point, I done reached number 4. So I'm
Yeah.
good, you know. And then boom, 5 and 6, back to back, boom, boom. I was like, I can't catch a break. But at this point, I was okay because, I was married. And then everything turned the corner with my marriage, and he showed a totally different side, So I had to, at that point, shut down, disconnect, and say, you know what, enough. Like, I'm tired of this cycle. It's just gonna be
Mhm.
me and my kids. And that's what happened. It just ended up being me and my kids. And, you know, the blessing, is that the fathers didn't stay around because they definitely would have did more harm than good because of the abuse, because of the drinking, because of the drugs, because of all of that, you know. So me working 2 and 3 jobs at one time just to make sure that me and my kids are taken care of, like, it didn't matter because I felt like this is what I needed to do to keep my little family together
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
not rely on anybody else. So yeah, that's part of, I condensed it. 'Cause-
Listen, listen. No, but that's good because I honestly feel that even in the condensation of it all, it's going to help somebody. Somebody on the other side is going to be helped, right? Because I think a lot of times too, people feel like when they start getting the numbers, right, and it's like they don't want to really talk about it because the judgment, But it's like, and I keep saying this, but mama's baby, papa's maybe, right? Where when it comes to parenting, most times it's the moms that no matter what have to stick and stay. But again, and I'll keep saying this throughout the evening, we do know some guys that have had to take on that role. And so I appreciate the fact that you were able to share that with the people because again, I think that everything that has been shared thus far is definitely going to help somebody on the other side. Just with regards to single parenting, I know I get a lot of times people be like, you are rocking or killing this single parenting thing, like, or you're the single mom hero and blah blah blah. I don't want that title, because
Uh-uh.
it under no circumstances do I feel like I should have ever had to take on the responsibility of a bulk of the work, right? Because it's just not fair. And while some of us make it look easy, excuse my language, but this shit is hard as hell,
Yes,
right?
it
It
is.
is hard. And we don't give ourselves enough credit when we talk about or think about the sacrifices that have to be made. And we can always lean into the financial sacrifices, but what about our sacrifice of time, our sacrifice of self care, our sacrifice of
Mental stability.
mental
Everything.
stability, you know what I mean? Just so many things. And I share this story often with people that I come in contact with when we think about sacrifices. And our kids, not that they need to know everything that we sacrifice for them, but I remember a time where I had to decide whether or not I was going to keep my mortgage or keep my kids in a certain school. And I had people saying to me, you need to pull them out of that school. You need to take them out and da 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 da. But to me, education is everything, because to me,
Mhm,
education is their way out. Right. And so
mhm,
I have always been willing to struggle and to sacrifice so that my kids can have a better opportunity. And
mhm,
I walked away from my house, y'all, so that my kids could stay in a particular setting. And at the time, one of my favorite sayings is that God will always provide, God will always make provision. And I stand
mhm,
firm on that, because to this day, my kids have never been split up. We have always had a roof over our heads. They have always had food in their bellies. Now, we might have came home a time or two and those lights was cut off, but we were able to get that stuff cut back on. But
mhm,
it just goes to show how sometimes when you're in this thing and you're in survival mode, right? And you do everything that you need to do for your babies, um, that it goes unnoted. And so I think that's why it was important that we came together and had this conversation. And so there's a guy in the chat, Darnell. I was trying to get you to join us as well. He says all you ladies need to know that the responsibility shouldn't have been yours first, and I think that that's paramount, right? And just for a
yeah,
guy to be able to say, "Listen,
mhm,
hey ladies, that wasn't your responsibility from the gate," right? Because
mhm,
parenting should be a shared thing. It takes two individuals to
Yeah,
create these little
make one.
beings,
mhm,
but when it comes to responsibility, emotional intelligence, what's going on up here, sometimes you definitely have to make the decision to say, listen, this or that. And I would like to say that in my case, especially, I chose this, right? I chose my kids over the instability and all of that stuff.
mhm.
And so I wanted to ask you ladies if you've ever had the voice or the courage to say to people, like, I'm tired, this is hard, it's frustrating, I have resentments towards the other parent. um have you ever found yourself in that position to really speak to how hard single parenting can be?
I
Or
can answer that. um, so I have someone, and she's probably watching. She's my cousin, and she is my sounding board, and I love her dearly. She's godmother to two of my kids, and I've cried to her a lot of times, and I would tell her, how I just didn't feel like I was. I'm trying not to get emotional, y'all.
let
Um,
it
It's
come,
okay.
let it
Let it
come.
out.
I would tell her, how I felt like, I was failing my kids, how I wasn't the greatest parent, how my kids deserved, so much more. And, it was times that I just wanted to give up, and I would ask her, like, would you take them, because I think they deserve a better life, and you have a husband, and you're stable and stuff, and and she would like yell at me, and she'd be like, absolutely not, absolutely not, I'm not taking them. And I'm like, but you're supposed to. And she's like, no. She's like, you're doing a good job. She
Mhm.
would encourage me in a way that, I never got from any of, the fathers, telling me,
Mhm.
oh, thank you for stepping up, thank you for this, thank you for that, until probably about, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. Two, well, three of them came back around. Well, it's only four, so I'm sorry. But they did. They came around.
She said
And
both. Yeah, she
right. It's only four baby daddies, y'all. I promise. Um, but three of the four came back around, and they offered apologies. And they actually, said that they appreciate, that I never had a harsh word to say about them. I never spoke bad to my children about them. And, I let my children make their own decisions, when it came to, their relationships and stuff, because it wasn't me that, severed that relationship. It was them, you
Mhm.
know, and I
Mhm.
tried, I even would drive 2 weekends a month to New York to make sure that my sons saw their father,
Yeah.
and he would dip me, he would dodge me, like
The
he would,
sacrifice.
yes, he would, and my car was a putt putt, y'all. Like it was my first car. I didn't get a license until I was almost 30 because you
Girl.
didn't need one in New York. But when
Right.
we moved here
Right.
to Delaware, that and me and that putt putt and those four kids would be in that back seat and we would up and down that road, and he would dip, dodge, he wouldn't show up. And years later, he apologized for how he treated me. He apologized for, what he did to the kids. He
Mhm.
apologized for everything, because now it's coming back to him, so he was like, I want a relationship with them. And I was like, well, I would be happy for that, but at this time my sons were 15 and 16, or 16 and something like that. And I told him, I was like, this is their decision to make. I can't make that decision. I can give them your number and tell them that you reached out, but you know you can't expect me to force them. And he was like, I understand, and they made their own decision. I talked to them about it or whatever, but that decision was theirs to make. They weren't
Mhm.
disrespectful about it. They said, he ain't been around all of this time. You taught me how to be a man, Ma. Where was he, when this happened, when you needed this, when we needed that? We couldn't call him then. Like, why does he need us now? So, I mean, it is some bitterness that I want my
Mhm.
sons to let go,
Yes.
but I understand where it comes from, And then, like, the one that really, like, you know, made me feel a different way was my oldest daughter's father. He just knew I had said all of these horrible things, and my daughter chose, to have a relationship with him. And, he was like, oh, I know your mom, said all of these things and stuff. And she was like, nope, nope. My mom just told me, who you were, that you were my dad, how you guys met, why she liked you so much, She never said anything bad. And that man cried on the phone to me and was like, because you didn't have a harsh word against me, it left the door open for me and my daughter to connect and have this bond now. So, even though I didn't have that support when I needed it, on those days when I cried and just felt like I was a failure, just them coming back all of these years later and saying, thank you for being you and for doing what you did and how you did it. Like, that just kind of makes the days a little better, even though, my kids are older now, it
Mhm.
still makes it better.
Definitely. Definitely. And I'm so glad you touched on that because that was something I had on my list, right? To
Oh,
kind of to dismantle the fact that the primary caregiver or the primary parent has to talk bad about the other because there's a lot of households where people are really committed to not down talking about the absent parent, right? Instead, you try to cultivate this space for the kids to still be able to be open and receptive if and when that parent makes the decision to say, I really want to be involved. Right. And you always hear that. I remember when I was younger and my dad would say, I know your mom told you blah, blah, blah. No, sir, she didn't. And I always had this certain disposition, but I'm like, nah, she doesn't talk bad about you at all, because you don't have to. Because
Right.
like you said, Takesha, the kids grow up, and that's the other thing, right? People don't realize that these babies are growing, and as these babies are getting older, you, my friend, are getting older too, whether it's the absent mother or the absent father. And so Miss Tracy or Keisha, did either one of y'all want to add on to that?
That's very much true. You don't want to you don't want to encourage negative. So as a parent, I made my face that he just wasn't available. I was like, when he gets a moment, he will. It's like you're making up all these excuses. Excuses do run out, but the kid don't realize it. So why don't we just paint a picture for them and let them figure out. Once they do figure out, they say sorry. Ex-husband, 17 years. She was going to graduate. Then still, after all that, talking about you sorry, but you sorry you still can't. only had one job in 17 years. Just one.
Yeah.
That was to show up for graduation. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? But at that point, they don't like, we invited you. You chose not to show up. So whatever you made up in your head, whatever I let him make that run himself all by himself. And that judged their whole relationship more forgiving than we are. They let it go, depending on the child. I ain't gonna lie, depending on the child. Mine.
Depending on the child, yes.
So I always say that give them the opportunity, but it's whole be like, no, but he is. Yeah, he was, and yes, he used to be. In my whole life.
Yes.
She never knew that. I was how I talked about. He used to be, or he's how you create such a picture that you know in your heart you be like, you know what, I'm so tired of lying. You keep it up. You keep the facade up for the kids.
Right.
Yes, because that's what you do, right? The ultimate goal is to protect your babies, their hearts and their minds. There's a comment that says, stay encouraged, ladies. God's got y'all, and thank y'all for y'all's, and thank you for your transparency, right? And I think that that's just it. When it comes to doing this thing on your own, you do it for spiritual people, right? You turn to God a whole lot.
Yes, you do.
A whole lot.
One more thing. And the only thing that really made me upset with him, and I almost lost my visitation. I did everything through the court after a while because it was just too much activity. So I said, okay, this time he gonna move out of state. So I left my child at daycare. You know the mom that you are. You sitting out front. So I sat out there to pick up. He never called. He gonna call me 2 days later talking about he was my child sitting there with a backpack that told me you coming to get her. I can still remember it like it was just. Like, why you just? Sometimes it's if you're not ready, I'd rather you stay away. It's easier. Coming the one time I told her you coming. Like I said, he only got one job.
One job.
One job. But you know what? He got a new job. He did this, did it, all this dancing that you do to make it like you're okay. You already know he ain't coming. But you can't say you better keep face. As a single stuck trying to make this face, and sometimes that's the hardest part. You spend so much pretending that it's okay. You like you fool. Their support sucks. You have to turn to Jesus because nobody else can. Nobody.
That's it. That's it.
Everybody else got all this extra 10 cents. You just like, you told me you would have knew the extra stuff. He said he wasn't coming. We could have went home and made our pizza and French fries. Whatever he's gonna make.
That's it. Well, you know what I learned early? I learned early not to share things, right? And so I can remember being younger and my dad promising me two pair of Feli sneakers. We laugh about this now. And to this day, I just turned 46 last week. I'm still waiting on my red and blue pair of Feli sneakers that my dad promised me that he was going to get me. God rest his soul. He is now deceased. So we all know that I'm not getting those darn sneakers, right? And so um I have learned not to say anything so that my kids are not disappointed, right? And so if I get a call that says, "Hey, I want to come and pick them up or whatever," okay, that's fine. We as the adults can communicate that.
Right.
The child doesn't need to know until you're about to pull up. When you call me and say I'm 10 minutes away, I'm 15 minutes away, then that's when I relay the message, because you can't reverse that. And even with that, it goes back to what Takesha was saying, right? You don't really want the kids to view them in a certain light, but also as the primary caregiver, you have to do a lot of mending when that stuff happens, you know. And I'm with you too, Miss Tracy. Like, don't tell me you're gonna pick my baby up from daycare and then I'm on edge. I'm anxious because I don't know if you're gonna show up or not. Right. And so yeah, I'm calling, I'll circle the block, but listen, it's just not a good space and we shouldn't have to feel that. But it comes with, I guess, the territory, right? It doesn't make it okay. But yeah, so definitely. Keisha, did you want to add on to the hardships or just being able to say at a certain point how hard it has been being a single parent?
I mean, it's hard when you're looking at your infant and you can't provide for that infant because you're on no pay maternity leave. Okay. So when I come to you and I ask you for certain things that I absolutely need, not want, hours, you're telling me I don't have it. But then you pull up with a brand new car, I have an issue with that. Whereas I've had to go and borrow from family members, you know, how embarrassing, what I mean, because it makes me feel I'm embarrassed, because I'm supposed to be grown and holding my own. This is my child. I laid down to have him. It's nobody else's responsibility. But I had to humble myself and ask for help because I need help.
Mm-hmm.
It's either that or my child does not eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
And
single
by the
parenting
way, I'm still
is
waiting for my Stan Smiths from your uncle. Okay, it must be no fun. I guess I don't know.
yeah. But single parenting is humbling and humiliating, right? But I think if we can, again, and just for the sake of this conversation, I'm really like, I'm getting flooded with thoughts because I have so much stuff coming up, right? But I think that this is a prime example based upon what you just said of how important it is to tap into the village, right? So whether a parent is absent or what have you, tap into the village because God provides, right? It goes back to what we were saying. He always makes provision. And sometimes that provision comes in the form of a person saying, I can pick him up, or I can grab her for you today, or I'm gonna drop a couple dollars off, or I'm gonna bring you a couple cans of milk, right? But if we don't articulate our needs, then the people in our village, the people that love and care for us, don't know that that's what we need. And so Darnell is on here. He said, pain and disappointment is a part of this life, and children are far more resilient than we give them credit for. It will help to mold them. I do agree with that. So, okay. So I know you're saying that because what I just said, as far as not wanting them to be disappointed in their dad or, the parent not showing up. But I do agree wholeheartedly that pain and disappointment is a part of life. It builds character, and so there are times where it's out of my control where those disappointments come, right? And when that happens, we deal with it, we address it accordingly. And I want to just say thank you to Darnell because I can remember when my oldest son was younger and he played basketball. Anybody that knows me knows I don't understand sports. I will sign these kids up and I will put them in these sports because they are boys, because they need to be active. They need to, be around male energy. So I know to do that. And as a coach, there are times that they would drop my son off for me. there were times where I had to go to my second job and I would be able to drop my son off to practice and they would make sure he got home. When there were tournaments that I couldn't attend because I had to do something else with my daughter, his coaches filled in, and it's not to say that I didn't reach out to his dad to say, hey, listen, there's this tournament this weekend or blah, 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 or this is going on. But they have the space or the privilege, for lack of a better term, to say, I can't.
Yep.
Right.
I can't.
Or I just won't.
Or I won't.
Yep.
Right?
I don't have
We don't get that.
We don't have that.
We gotta be better. We must.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
do.
Yeah.
And then if they get a phone call and saying that we didn't, then that's when how dare you? You left my kid. You didn't this. You didn't that.
You should be put in jail.
Okay, but that's your kid too. So where were you?
Exactly.
Like, I told you that this is what I needed, and it took for you to even respond. Like, that's when the neck rolling come in, ladies. Because now I got issues.
Didn't argue.
Yeah. And again, I can honestly say, what'd you say, Miss Tracy?
I didn't argue at all. I didn't argue. I had no comment. I said nothing. I was at the court so much the judge knew me by name. Mr. Sevilla, it's you again? Why is she have you in court again? I did arbitration. I did it all. And I said nothing to tell you what to do. So obviously you don't understand assignment.
Yeah.
You don't understand the job and the assignment. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at me for not catching on. I spared her all the ride I can spare her. Every bit of the ride. But I'm like you, for my dad to come all the time with a backpack on and he ain't come in. And I said, not mine. Just not mine. Every promise that's made to her is gonna be like golden. I don't care what they do with the rest of the time.
Yeah.
You're right. They had the space to say, I'm not doing it. I'm busy. I'm doing this. I'm like, what? I don't want to go to courts. So we didn't have that problem. I just didn't want to work my nerves up. It was on-site security, on-site this, on-site mental health, on-site homework, on-site drop-off, PTA president, be on this board, do that. I was busy enough. I didn't even get him that much. He didn't get that much. You just don't care. No, I don't care. I don't have time to care.
That's the part, right? You don't have time. You're already stretched super thin, right? And to add one more thing. And I can honestly say, especially, as a single parent, if I call on you, it's because I have to, right? Not even that I want to, because I go back to, if it disturbs my peace, I don't want no parts of it. So I'm like, yo, I'm not arguing with nobody. I'm not going back and forth. Too many exchanges for me. It's just too much, right? And so it's like, the question is, can you or can you not? Yes or no? Nothing more, nothing less. Because if you tell me yes, that's great. If you tell me no, I still have to figure it out.
Yeah.
No matter which way it goes, right? And so I think that, too, a lot of times there is this notion that there are a ton of resentments, when I honestly feel like a lot of times you don't even have the time or the space to hold on to those resentments. And I think it goes back, I think it was you, Keisha, that said earlier about just accepting, like, it is what it is, pretty much, right? Because no matter what, at the end of the day, these kids have to be cared for. These kids have to be cultivated and exposed to certain things, right? And at the end of the day, we just really want what's best for these little people that we have created, right? Because they are out here and they're going to be gracing this earth, and we just want to make sure that we put them in the best positions. So how do you guys handle when your kids are disappointed, or when your kids have been disappointed? And especially because now your kids are a little older, it's like those conversations come up. And I think that just in sharing this part, it will be able to tap into the resiliency piece that was mentioned in the comments. So when the kids are disappointed that the other parent is doing whatever or not doing whatever, how have you ladies been able to navigate those conversations?
I let the child come to me and tell me how they feel. Because about something already made. So in my head, I let her come to me and tell me, how did you feel about him not coming to graduate? She told me she felt that way. I said, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think he was coming. But I thought that it's your choice to make that decision of where you want to put him. And at this point, I'm going to make this relationship. Don't call me and ask about her. She has her own phone. You call her. When you feel like being, don't be bothering me with that. I want to be, and I wish I could, and all that stuff. We ain't got time for that. Works well because in his head, he knew he couldn't puff me up thinking he was gonna do stuff. Depending on how you raise that child, children ain't stupid. They are a little as they get older. They become so when he learned his lesson, he gets a better lesson from her than he could ever got from me. How are you not doing? Yeah. What exactly? Well, why? I don't understand. Kids are different. They are a little bit that character to not let them get bruised at too, so they can have that resistance decision you're making right now. Whatever. Yeah. So that's what I say. You can build them up down it too.
Okay. So Takesha or Keisha, how have y'all dealt with the conversation surrounding disappointment or the experience?
I'm a spoiler. My kids are so spoiled. They are rotten, and that is all me. I own that 110%. So like it's like you said in the beginning, Eb, about, putting a band-aid over it. Like that's what I kind of did. Like, oh, it's okay, it's all right. We can go to the store and you can pick out a toy and you can get whatever toy that you wanted. And that was like my way of like saying this is gonna make it all better. I learned that it did not make it all better because we still had to deal with it, later on. But that at the time, I was still young and didn't really have all the experience that I have now. So, I kind of dealt with things, as like just giving them whatever they want. Money, clothes, sneakers, toys, electronics, like, oh, this is what you want, okay. Mom can't get this right now, but eventually they knew that they would get it. But we eventually had to have the conversation later on, and my sons, they did, they expressed a lot, how they felt about how we would drive to New York, because even though New York is right there, it's not right there.
It's not right there, especially when you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay that electric bill.
That electric bill, that toll, because my goodness, that was the toll itself was a bill. I was like, wait, what?
$20 now, $25.
Yeah, listen, I don't even go home no more just because of the tolls. Like, I can't afford it. But back then, like I was one job. Because I didn't know Delaware that well. So, I just had the one job that I had, transferred down there to, and these kids just up and down this highway. And, my sons, they did say, like, Mom, we didn't think it was fair, but it hurt our feelings. Like, why wouldn't our dad want to see us? And I didn't have answers to that, and I didn't, pretend like to have the answers. And I didn't, speak bad about their dad. I just kind of said, well, maybe he had other things going on at the moment that, if you guys were there, you would have been affected negatively by it. Like, I kind of had to spin my own narrative, just so to keep him in a good light, because I didn't want to make him seem like the bad guy, but also, give them an answer that they would be okay with, and now that they're, 22 and 21, they be looking at me like, Mom, we know now, like, we know that you was just, but they appreciated that because they didn't see that bitterness, from me. They didn't see that negativity from me. They saw love even for somebody that didn't, love me.
Mhm. All right, there's another comment. It says life is hard, so disappointment most times comes from bad choices. So
Mm.
our choices need to be a lesson to our kids and making them realize that one day they too will be faced with some of the decisions that we had. That's true. That's
Mm-hmm.
true. And um listen, everything is a choice.
Yeah.
Everything, right? Life is about decision making 101, right? And we can only talk to our kids from our own experiences. And I do think that it is important to be transparent with our kids, and sometimes to a fault, right? But I think that as they get older and they begin to really step out into this world and to be in the position to solely begin to make decisions for themselves, they can kind of trek backwards and be like, okay, well, mom or dad did say blah, 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 or I saw this in my family system, and this is not what I want for when I create my own family system. Right. And so
100%.
I agree. Life is hard. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
easy about it. But it's also what we make it, right? And I know that's so cliche, but now and again that we're older and we're in this part of our journeys, we can now really make sense of hearing those words, that everything isn't always going to be easy. You're not going to be handed everything. You have to work for things, right? If you make a decision or a certain choice and whatever consequences come from that, whether it be good or bad, you have to sit with it. But yeah, that's definitely on point. They will be faced with making some of their own decisions, sooner rather than later, honestly.
Mhm.
But yeah. So Keisha, did you want to add on to how you
Uh,
handle disappointment?
So with my experience, my son is very, very transparent. He will speak his mind. Um, Sometimes a little too much, but we've sat down and just discussed how you feel about a certain, if he promised you something and didn't come through, and then of course I would overcompensate or try to overcompensate for that void, because I never want him to feel how I felt when I grew up, you know and I've always let that door be open, so no matter what the situation, between him and I, the
Hmm.
door is always open for you to come see him, but just
Yeah.
note that you're to see him, it's not to come see me. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So when you're saying and doing these certain things, understand that you're not hurting me, or you're hurting me in a sense because you're hurting my child. But
Yeah.
Hmm.
he's the main one that you're hurting, because you're telling him one thing, but you're doing the total opposite.
Mhm.
You
Hmm.
know, and I try to be that strong woman, not to allow him to see, me down. Come on, we're gonna pick up and bounce. We're gonna do something. Make the best of this day. You're not gonna sit
Hmm.
home just because he said no. Let's go.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
want him to feel like, oh, I'm not loved, because I'm gonna take that love that you're missing, so to speak, and
Mhm.
build upon that. So now you're gonna get all, so much love from me, a lot more love from me, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. And that overcompensation is huge, right? In
Huge.
Hmm.
so many households,
Huge.
and I really try not to fall into that.
Hmm.
And because it's a lot, because then when you start overcompensating, then you have to deal with the flip side of it, of when you're not in position
You're
to
not able
do. And
to.
then if they start acting
Mhm.
crazy, it's just like, oh my God, I'm trying to do what's right by
Hmm.
you. And then the one time I tell you no,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
now you want to cut up. And so I really try to make sure that I am being intentional and mindful about that piece, because that is huge, because so many parents definitely try to overcompensate to fill that void or to patch things up, for the sake of the kids, when that just causes more damage. One thing I'm real big on is owning my role as a mother and
Hmm.
not allowing people to say, well, you're the mother and the father. No, I will
No,
never
no,
be a,
no.
Mhm.
never. And I wouldn't pride myself in trying to even be a father, because there's certain things that kids get from a man that they absolutely cannot get from a woman. And so I'm very, very mindful about that. And, when Mother's Day and Father's Day rolls around, let's keep it into its proper category. You know what I mean? I don't need you wishing me a happy Father's Day. Like that's actually offensive, you know. And so Miss Tracy, did you want to add on to the disappointments?
Yeah, yeah, disappointments are tight, but it's one like you said that overcompensating. You tend to overcompensate more. So I ain't had no money like that.
Yeah.
So I spent. It was like the time. Then she wanted someone to come over. They can come over. Every time something was going on and she wanted to go, I made sure she was there.
Mm-hmm.
And the time thing with church made a big difference because it wasn't always a lot of money. It was that she was doing and had a great time all the time, but it was what it was. So to me, you're right. You tend to overcompensate, but you never try to be the mother and the father. You just remind them that you're mommy and mommy got you no matter what. We're gonna make them. You sure? We're gonna make this work.
We gonna
Right.
make
That's
it work.
how
That's
Yes.
right.
we're gonna make this work. That's it. We got this. And it's just so
Yeah.
funny. And it goes to a story where that I had hurt myself. I got in an accident. I got hit by the medical director at Blue Cross in a parking lot. My daughter
Oh
made
my
me mac and
gosh.
8 or 9, 8. She made me mac and cheese and broccoli every day for dinner. This is her telling me, "Mommy, we don't need anybody else. We got each other." When she did that day, in my mind, I was wondering if she's going to understand. We got each other. We needed other people. We went to church, had a little. It came crush at the end of the day. All we got is us and these four walls. And then when I realized,
Yes.
I said my job was done. It wasn't about money. I was like, oh, thank God, because I ain't got much of that.
Yeah.
But that's I didn't.
Mhm.
It luckily came upon me, but I don't believe God makes no mistakes. So I believe that was the lesson. Hung up a little bit, but it
Yeah.
made me proud
Yeah.
as a mother, knowing that she's like, no, mommy, I got us. We don't need to lay here and wait till you come home, then.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So there's another comment. It says overcompensation was a huge mistake for me when my son was small, but I realized the fact is God only made me his dad and his mom is his mom, and he was made to appreciate that dynamic no matter what. And that's true, right? And I can't stress that enough. Like moms are moms and dads are dads,
That's
no
right.
matter who's present or who's not. And I think that it's important that we teach that to our children and that we teach that to the people around us that find it funny or humorous to consider you to be in a role that you're not. You know, it's I'm a mom and I'm doing this thing to the best of my ability. And so I wanted to ask you ladies too. So with regards to single parenting, a lot of times we lose sight of the things that we need to do for ourselves because we kind of just throw ourselves into everything that our kids need, right? How do you all make sure that you're finding time to practice self-care or to tap into just some straight adulting time or something that's going to, you know, make you feel good outside of being a mom? So how do you tap into being able to have self-care?
Well, I hit the salons, the nail salon. I get my toes done, my fingers done, get my brows done. But more importantly, I have self care Sundays where I will soak in a tub. Have my scrubs, have my glass of wine. If I choose to have my glass of wine, but
Hmm.
and I've even had professional massages. But just something to make me feel like I can breathe now. I don't
Yes.
have to worry for this half hour. You know what I mean? He's
Hmm.
good, and now I can take care of myself.
Okay, good. Self-care Sundays.
Right? Self care Sundays.
I it took me a long time to learn what self-care was. I
Hmm.
used to feel guilty so often, like doing anything that wasn't about my kids, Plus, when you have little birdies in your ears telling you like, "Oh, you have these kids, you shouldn't even be worried about you," and it sticks in your mind, You don't even think about self care, for yourself. But now, baby. Mom go get her
Yeah,
nails done. She go get her feet done.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to go out and do some karaoke and line dance with my girls, like whatever it is that I'm feeling at that moment, like that's what I'll do. I'm a homebody, really. I don't mind being home, but when I feel like, things are getting to be too much and I need to decompress and I just need to not see my four walls or my kids for a little while, I'll just go out and, be it daytime or nighttime, I find time for me now. And I don't feel guilty about it anymore because they don't feel guilty when they come with their little hands stuck out talking about they want to go to the movies and they want to go to the main event and stuff. And I just be doling out my little bit of coins. So I don't feel guilty anymore. Like, because I know the better me needs to be here for them. Like they don't need to
Yes.
see the stressed out, frazzled, yelling and crying mom. They need to see the come on, let's dance, let's have our own
Mm-hmm.
little party here. They need to see that part of me. So
Yes. Okay.
I have to
I
agree with what
completely
she said. Sometimes it's hard to find time for self care. But I had a best friend, my daughter. I met this girl at work, and she was like, "I'm gonna show you. I can only tell you two things. I, I can't fix them, but I can tell you. I know this church you can go to." She said, "I guarantee He's provide you all your paths, and not to be religious or spiritual like that." But when she
Yeah.
said it, she
okay.
said, "Listen." And when she said that, it opened up my eyes to realize that everything that be there, God has already determined all your steps. This girl met me because my daughter didn't know the girl from Mad Can of Paint. And she could watch her while I would go to the gym. And she's like, I always had my child attached to my hip. Because your mom, you had an old school mom who was like, that's your baby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care where you on that. She's on your hip.
Yep. Have
That's
baby
just your
will
baby, not
travel.
mine. She
Yes.
told me. So all I ever had was twice a week. I would take my daughter was in Bible study. She was there. So we had dressed up. She
Mm-hmm.
had clothes to go everywhere. But this girl will keep this baby for me. So, and then one night, twice a week, she'll keep her. Then one day overnight. She was my lifesaver. No one our bond is the way we are. She's
Yeah.
interesting. But she spoke the truth. I can't give you an answer, but I can help you at least get some peace in there. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just
Yes.
sat there and she's like, that was it. And she's my best friend to this day. But she would watch her for 4. I was like, I'm going to the gym. So you ain't going nowhere but to the gym. Are you the gym? I said, because that time will always give you that moment. But to have somebody realize that I needed help without me asking, nice. And not many people
Mm-hmm.
ask. They'd be like, no, that's your child. Put her on your hip, backpack.
Yeah.
They don't keep.
Mm-hmm.
To me, people always said, you made that bed. You got to lay. This is your. No, you did not sign up. I did not say I wanted to lose my. I never said that. It's not what I signed up for.
Yes.
So that's what I felt like.
Okay, okay. Listen, and so I three words that stood out for me with regards to parenting, right? And the lack of involvement on either side was dependability, reliability, and responsibility. What do those words mean when you ladies think of them? Dependability, reliability, and responsibility.
That's tough.
I think of
Um,
those words, and I have to be accountable. I have to be
mhm.
accountable to scratch all those X's off because whoever says it, it's going to be my fault if it's nothing done accountable. So I had to be
Mhm.
all bundled in one, no matter how I felt, how sick I was, how bad
Mhm.
my back hurt, monthly thing. No matter what was going on, I still had to be the superhero and cover and check all those boxes. That's what I felt about those being a single parent. Because you're like, oh my God,
Yes.
I still got to do rather how I feel.
Yeah.
No matter how you feel, right? You still got to make it happen. No matter how you feel.
Um, I'll say it's my responsibility to be dependable and accountable for my kids. I can't worry about what anybody else does. I can't force anybody to change or to be anything other than who they are. And that's it, that's just not my job. Like I
Mhm.
can present, to you like these are your options. This is, the door is open anytime you want to have this relationship, but other than that, it's my responsibility. I have to be dependable and I have to be accountable because I mean, they are mine.
Yes. All right. So there's a comment. It says, men, period. Those words mean men.
Hmm.
We wonder so much why society has fallen apart the way that it has. And the answer is simple: God's divine order. And so that's what I think of too, right? So when I think of dependability, reliability, and responsibility, I think that it's important that as we cultivate these little people into bigger people, right, that will someday be in position to make their own decisions and will someday be parents in their own right, right? We have to instill in our children the importance of those three things, right? And one thing I've always said to my sons, and my oldest son is a grown man, but I've always said to him, in the event that you get a young lady pregnant, you have a responsibility no
Hmm.
matter whether you like that chick or not. So you need to think before you
Hmm.
lay down with somebody, right? Going back to decisions, you
Hmm.
need to think about the fact that seeds cost money. So if you are planting your seeds, you need to make sure that it's with somebody that you truly are connected to, somebody that you could see being in your life for the rest of your life, right? Because once that kid comes, you have a responsibility to be dependable, reliable, and to care for and provide for that seed that you planted. And I feel like a lot of that is lost in today's context. And so the comment says the village has to hold men more accountable, whether women like it or not. They are the weaker vessel, and God never intended for y'all to be the leader. I agree with that.
I agree
I
too.
hands down agree with that. However, a lot of times when women find themselves having to be so hard, having to be the leader, it's because they were forced to
Yep.
do that. They were forced and left with no other choice, right? And so
Mhm.
if
Get me a
if
charger.
we present a certain way,
Mally, get me a
it's because
charger.
of the situations, right, that have caused us to be in a certain mode, whether that's survival mode, you know what I mean, or just, I have to do all things, and
Mhm.
I can't drop the ball. I have very little wiggle room to drop the ball. So because I have very little wiggle room, I'm going to do what I have to do, which in turn makes it looks like I'm the stronger vessel when
Mhm.
that's not a responsibility or even a task that I signed up for. So thank you. A good comment. And
Can I
so Keisha,
can I
go.
say something?
Yes, go ahead.
So I totally agree with what Darnell says. But what a lot of men fail to realize is kind of like to piggyback off of what you said, Ebony. Like a lot of us women have no other choice but to be strong,
Hmm.
And I can honestly tell you that, myself included, there are other single moms that I know they don't want to be strong. They
Mm-mm.
don't want to be strong.
Yeah.
They wish that they had somebody, that they could turn to, and be like, here, here you
Yeah.
go. Here's some of what what I got going on. Can you hold this up? But and it's also like what Darnell said in his comment, like the village holding these men accountable, and they don't, you know, they don't. They don't
Hmm.
hold them accountable. They coddle them. They tell them it's okay, it's all right. Oh, well, not everything is meant to be. Okay, everything is not meant to be. However, the decisions that you made are the reason why you have this child, is why you have this. Your job is to be the stronger vessel in that woman's life, regardless of how you feel about her or not. You know, you're supposed to step up and say, you know what, for the sake of this little human that we created, we need to be the adults come together and see how we can make this work together, so this child doesn't grow up feeling lack either way. And that is a huge problem, because when you have people that say, oh man, just sit back, she got it, these women today want to be XYZ. No, they don't.
They
They
don't.
don't.
They
Because I
don't.
can promise you I don't.
Absolutely not.
Yes. Yes.
And mine are
No.
almost all out the house, and I still don't. Even when
Yeah.
they're gone, I still don't. But we have no choice. We
Yeah. So
have
I
no
always
choice.
ask that question too, especially when I'm talking to groups of men, right? Like, is there the accountability factor amongst the bros or the men, right? And so when you know that you have a guy in your circle that's not showing up, that's not doing what he needs to do for his children, do y'all get in his ear? Do you say like, yo, man, I never see you with your kids, right? Because they could sit and say, oh, yeah, man, I was on daddy duty, blah, blah, blah. But if you're in their friend group, you would see their involvement with their children, right? And so when you don't see that, do the guys like really call them out on it, right? I always ask that question when I'm talking to guys. I remember I ran a group a few years ago, and the guy said to me, I grew up watching my mother be. I love that. Yes, Darnell. If you don't take care of your
Yes,
kids, we
facts.
can't be friends. Bottom line,
Yeah.
I rock out the
Facts.
same way as a
Hands up.
female. If you're not taking care of your kids, we can't be friends, because
No.
that's not what we do over here.
Mhm.
And so I it's important to me that people say those things to their friends. If you love me, you should be able to say those hard things to me
Mm-hmm.
to get me to show up and to be a better man or woman.
You hold
If
But
you're
the
accountable.
really
guy
my
said to
friend.
me, he grew up watching his mom be a single parent and keeping them all together, right? So then when he became a father, because he was down on his luck, he felt like it was okay to be hands off with his children because he was like, their mother is strong and she's capable and she got it. If my mom could do it, she could do it. And so we had this dialogue about the importance of showing up, because I do know too that a lot of times if a guy is down on his luck, he feels like he has to come bearing gifts and money. The kids just want your time. Now the mother or that other parent might be like, you gonna show up and you don't got nothing. That it's not about you, homegirl. It's not about you, sis. It's about him being involved with his children. And
Mm-hmm.
because that's all the kids want,
Yeah.
is to say, my dad came to see about me. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's how it should be. But this guy, I mean, his point was valid, but it just goes to show the mindset of people, right? And it's one of those things, when you know better, you do better. But if that's all he knew, then he felt
Different
like he
behavior.
was the best by staying away and being hands off. So Darnell also said, our children lack a healthy fear of authority, which is what the man is supposed to be, and the mom is supposed to be the nurturer. And I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I do my best
Mm-hmm.
to not step in. Like if disciplinary action needs to take place, I'll remove myself, right? Because that's not, I don't want to be a part of that. And so as dad, I expect you to show up and to handle things. And I also expect you to respect my role as the nurturer, right? And to not make me feel like I'm doing something wrong because I am nurturing. But that's what women are supposed to do, right? I'm not going to step in and be like, don't do that. And now I'm trying to raise up at you because you felt
Mm-hmm.
the need to put some sort of a disciplinary action. I'm a firm believer too of not in front of the kids. So even if I disagree, we can have this conversation
Conversation later.
outside of the children.
Whew.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know.
Listen,
Mm-hmm.
but so I'm so this is just I can say so much, but I'm just gonna say this. It frustrates me and it makes me so angry when people talk about um oh, you can tell they came from a single parent household by the way that those kids act and this and this and that. Listen, we as women, we are not supposed to be, just like you said, the disciplinarian. Don't sit there and judge how the woman is raising their kids. They're doing what is in their nature to
Mhm.
do. Is it right all the time? No. But these kids, you can't be both. Just like you said earlier, Ebony, you can't be both. Like, we can't will the hand and spank them, and then with the other hand, say, "Oh, come here." They gonna look at us like we crazy. Like, well,
And it
like we
sends
gonna
mixed
choose to
messages.
struggle.
It sends
Mhm.
mixed messages,
Yes.
And so there's another comment. It says there are men who had to play the role of mother and father. All of the comments have been really on point. And we did speak to that, and so again, while we are talking from the mother's perspective, we definitely wanted to make sure that we were highlighting the fact that there are some dads that have had to be the single parent or the primary caregiver, right? We don't want to take that away. We want to definitely make sure that we're giving credit where credit is due. But that's not God's divine order for any one parent to have to play both roles, right? And so I think that's the biggest point, But I definitely think that just being able to have the conversation, to shed light on it, to let others know, like, listen, you're not in this boat by yourself, right? And there's a community, there's a village ready and willing to support you. But if you
Mhm.
don't open your mouth to say, listen, this stuff is hard as
Mm.
y'all know, insert,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
this stuff is hard. But if you don't open your mouth to say it's hard and I don't know
Mhm.
which way I'm going to turn, like Takesha said, yo, I need you to come get these kids.
Mhm.
Will you take them?
Mhm.
I think that they deserve better, right? But I also think that when it comes to single parent households, we have to pat ourselves on the back. We have to give
Mhm.
ourselves a little bit of credit for doing what we know best to do. And then the other thing was, Takesha, as you were talking, it came up for me, just how statistically it shows that kids who come from a single parent household are at a huge disadvantage, right? Or that they're more prone to be in the streets, to do
Mhm.
engage in violent acts, to become addicted to drugs. I would like to beg to differ, right?
Mhm.
And I get it. Like, statistically, okay, first of all, who's running the numbers, right?
Exactly.
But I know a lot of kids that have thrived and have been able to go on to be super successful
Mhm.
haven't been raised in a single parent household,
Yep.
and for that alone, I say we have to give ourselves credit, and we don't have to
Mhm.
conform to what the statistics
That's
say
right.
our kids have to, like,
Absolutely.
kind of fit into this box,
Yep.
Mhm.
and even when we're comparing, and like you said too, am I failing my kids according to whose standard,
Right.
right? I think we have to step away from the comparison piece too. um I don't know what just happened. Yeah, we have to step away from the comparison piece too, to make sure that again, we're not like looking at, and this is my favorite term, and y'all come to know that about me, what's happening to the left and the right of me, right? I need to be so focused on putting one foot in front of the other to make
Mhm.
sure that we are kind of like marching to this forward mobility theme. Uh he said, parents have to let the village be the village and accept that your kids are not perfect. They need the balance that the village provides. Do you
Mhm.
ladies agree with that?
I totally agree, because I
Okay.
am that mother even now. Like, I believe in, if you see my kids, my kids, and if they are doing something that what I wouldn't approve of, please pull them up on it.
Yes.
And my
Yes.
down to my littlest one, who's 13. Listen, they all know, like, oh, my mom, like the whole face will change. You
Yes.
Mhm.
all you ain't you Keisha kid? That big
Yes.
break, the face will change, everything. Like, and they'll be like, oh, and they come home and they tell, and be like,
Oh.
so mom, I was out and I ran into somebody that knew you, and I'm like, really? And who was
Mhm.
that? 9 times out of 10, I don't already got the phone call or the text
Yes.
message or something or whatever. But
Yes.
I'm not that parent. And I think that is where society fails us, because you do have some parents out there that are like, oh, don't you touch my kid, don't say nothing to my kid. And I got some of those in my family. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like that's where you go wrong. That's where the kids go wrong. I need the village.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yes.
hello, my name is Keisha, and I need the village.
And
Like,
where you at? Show up for
Absolutely.
me and mine.
yeah,
Absolutely.
please, please, and thank you. Like, I'm gonna say
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
If you see my sons, grab them by the ear. Oh, you know my mom. Because they know, like, listen, I don't care that you 21 and you stand 6'1". I don't care how to come here.
Mhm.
Come, let me talk to you for a minute. And I grab the ear.
Mhm.
Come down to my level. Let me talk to you about something. Now you see my son and you know he doing something, grab his ear. Oh, you know my mom. Okay, let me straighten up, because I know she gonna get a phone call. Absolutely.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
this is what we need. This is what we need now. This is what we needed before. Like, this is what we need in the future. Like, things are
Mhm.
never gonna change until we get people out of the mindset of not my kid. Like, I understand wholeheartedly, like, there are people out here that don't have our kids' best interests at heart.
Yeah.
But that's where we come in as parents to say, listen, you remember such and such. And I tell my kids all the time, oh, that's Miss such and such. That's Mr. such and such. That's Miss such and
Yes.
such. My kids know I dare you to call an adult by their first name.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
dare you. The consequences behind that is severe. I don't play that. I don't care how old you are. If they old enough to be your mother, your auntie, big cousin, uncle, God, I don't care. You put
Put
a
a
handle
handle on
on
it.
their name.
That's
You
right.
put a handle on it. You know,
Yes.
that's just me, and I know my kids ain't perfect. So
Right.
please, if you
Right.
see them doing something, I'll show you pictures. Just trip them. Oh, you know my mom. They'll get into line real quick.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God. Hi, Papa.
Okay. So were either one of you going to chime in to the need for the village?
Oh, I absolutely need the village. I'm gonna tell you, and it's just over the course of a couple of years, um, I have not felt guilty about dropping him off where he needs to go. My brothers, thank you. Because at any given point, my brother will call me. Listen, what's nephew doing? Oh, nothing. You want him? Sure thing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
either he'll come over from Jersey or I'll take him over. You know what I mean? But it gives me time for my self care. To do whatever I need or want to do. But then it also helps him bond with his cousins. Which my cousins, we we are first best friends. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
fun. We needed that. And I think that
Yes.
he's my only child. So he needs that, you
Mhm.
know. So I'm now it's yeah, sure, you want to go? I'll take you wherever you need
Yeah.
to go. But I thank God for the village, stepping in and helping because it alleviates that pressure, you know,
Mhm.
that sometimes I tend to put on myself, because it really doesn't have to be that way. I just like pick up the phone, listen, I'm having a
Mhm.
tough one. Can he come over? But I've
Yeah.
never been that one to even ask because again, feeling guilty. I made that child. That's my responsibility, you know, and I had
Mhm.
to kind of get
Mhm.
out of my own way, so to speak, and allow him, listen, go, go, please go
Yes.
by any means.
Yes. How about you, Miss Tracy? The need for the village.
I use the whole village. I use everybody who's gonna put in the pot because, like you said, that self care thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
You as you feel a guilt, you'll
yeah,
get guilty and you'll feel like you have to be there everything. They're allowed to have other people. My dad was my hero. He always
yeah,
Yes.
watched her, always went and got her, always took her, always had her in a car. My dad was a mechanic. It was funny. She'd be in the back seat while he working on the car, just to give
Yes.
me my moment. And it was to me. He was my star. He was my rock star. And he always said, I got you. Whatever was going on, I'm the
Yes.
daddy, he would say. That's my dad. He had a joke with me. He'd be like, I'm the daddy. You don't have to worry about it. I will be the daddy. And he did. But he
Listen.
wasn't, the
Listen.
funny thing, he wasn't that for me. I
right,
was always waiting for him to come.
yeah,
And
So
you
it was
know
a
what?
gift.
I'm so glad you said that.
mm,
Because my son's grandmother always makes a comment, and she says, what I couldn't do for my kids, I am sure to do for my grandkids. And so, and it's important, right, when grandparents can show up in a way that they weren't able to show up for us, to be able to be there for their grandbabies is a blessing, you know. And I think that as kids we have to be mindful to not harbor resentments, right? You
Right.
know, well, you never did that with me.
Right.
It's the evolution of things, right?
Yeah.
Their growth has happened. Life has humbled them, or a certain amount of humility has kind of set in. And they're like, listen, I missed out on so many
Yes.
opportunities with my own children that I'll be darned if I'm going to miss out on opportunities with
Yes.
my grandbabies. And so that open door policy, I think, is super important. Whenever you call, listen, come. Listen, I'm not going to block you from ever wanting to spend time to connect or to bond. But we have Pastor Ray Davis on here, who is the pastor of the Impact Center. And so he just made a comment and said, make an impact. And that's what it's all about. These community chats are really designed to make an impact, to change the trajectory of, you know, mental
Right.
health and how we go about life and how we do things, right? And how important it is not to feel guilty when you have to make certain decisions, you know, and it's just important. I think everything do, we need to be making an impact.
Yeah, don't say.
And so, ladies, y'all have
Good
given me,
evening, Pastor.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good
yeah.
evening. Good evening.
And so there's a service coming up. And Pastor Ray, you could put it in the comments. There's a service coming up on March 4th. And if you haven't experienced Impact, you should make your way to this
Oh,
service.
really?
Um,
Where is this
yeah,
located? Where's the
in
location?
Middletown.
Can you get
So
that
if
from
he gets to it and he'll put it in the chat, if not, I'll go back in and put it in. But March 4th at 5 p.m. And Pastor Ray, can you put the address to the church? There you go.
Thank you.
4744 Summit Bridge Road. And he and his wife are phenomenal, y'all. I've been able to participate and to, you know, just kind of do my thing
That's
with the
my phone.
children.
I can't. 444
Yeah.
4746.
But anywho, it will be a great experience. And if you can't make it in person, you can always, you know, follow I'm getting tongue tied. Follow their platforms, and you can watch it live stream. But if you can make it, I would encourage you to go in person. Um, but you ladies have given me an hour and a half of your time, and I totally appreciate it. And so while we honed in on single parenting, I hope that we were able to highlight, you know, some of the pros and cons, because, you know, we don't really want to lean into the pros, but sometimes there are pros to it, right? And it ties into that peace of mind. It ties into, you know, making sure that the kids aren't exposed to certain things, whether that be the drinking, the abuse, or the drug addictions, right? And so it's a lot that we could say. Everybody knows that I am a talker and I will talk all night, right? But I want to respect y'all's time. And I will say we're going to do a part two of this conversation. And while tonight we honed in on single parenting, the part two will really highlight effective co-parenting, because while, yes, I classify myself as a single parent, I am an avid believer that co-parenting is alive and well, and that it could be done with ease, right? I think that a lot of times we make things more complicated or difficult than they need to be when emotions are tied up in it. But if we're thinking about the best interest of our little people, and
Yeah.
each one of you spoke to that tonight, I do believe that co-parenting works. And so the part two to this conversation tonight, we'll circle back and we'll highlight just effective co-parenting and what it took to get to that point, right? And so again, we talked a lot about single parenting, but even in that growth and that evolution, Takesha spoke to it, how the father of her children were able to circle back and to make those apologies, and they are now hands-on, right? And all hope isn't lost, you know, because people can change, and you know, and I'll leave you with that word, impact, right? And so when you have single parents um who are doing the best that they can to raise their babies, whether it's the mom or the dad, by being intentional about not talking down about the other parent, you're making an impact. You know, you are showing and modeling to your children what healthy boundaries look like, what forgiveness looks like, you know, and what true parenting looks like, right? Because it's hard as all get out, but there are a lot
So
of
funny.
joys and blessings in it. Y'all know I've been holding my tongue all night because I curse too, but I think I did good tonight. Um, but I appreciate each one of you again for just dedicating your time and being committed to show up on this Sunday night. I listen, it gets easier. And you know, I think Takesha and Miss Tracy are proof of that. And Keisha, you know, with my older two, listen, it gets
Mhm.
easier. When you're
Oh
in the
yeah.
thick of it, you're like, oh my
Mhm.
God, like how I didn't sign up for this, not to do it on my
Mhm.
own, but you did it. And just like Darnell spoke about resilient kids, single parents are resilient. We have no
Yeah.
choice but to be, you know. So you ladies keep rocking out. Again, I appreciate you all. And before I let you go, is there anything that you all would like to share or any words of advice that you would like to offer for single parents out there, whether it be for the mom or the dad, or even for the absent parent?
I would say just, keep going, keep moving. Don't stop, don't give up, and allow yourself, that time. Don't feel guilty about certain things that may come up. You might want to, be able to do for your child, but in that present moment, you can't because of other situations that you have to, attend. To try to, come to grips or to obtain, certain things to take care of your child. Just keep moving. Keep moving, and know that you're not alone.
Mhm. I
Yes.
agree with Keisha. Just my biggest thing, allow yourself to feel.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to feel. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have a moment. But after you cry, you shake it off. You stand up and you just know that you have another day to do
Yes.
things differently and to get, just to keep moving forward because
Mhm.
those little eyes is always watching. My mom used to always say, little pictures got big ears. And I learned that, even when you don't think they could hear you or they see you, they are there.
Yeah.
So, yep. So I definitely just say, allow yourself to feel and just know that it gets better. It definitely does.
Yes.
Mhm.
Miss Tracy, you got anything for the people? Any advice or last
I would
words you want
say,
to share?
I would say, look at these things. Look at it as a gift. That child that was gift that you were giving, God would never give you no more than you can handle.
Yeah.
No matter how crazy and hectic and busy you are, He will always give you a way out to make it a smooth transition to wherever you're going with your child, because He always take care of those babies. Now, we might be
That's
Oh,
some fools some days. He take care of them babies.
yes. Yes, yes. I know. I always refer to my kids as my beautiful blessings from God. And sometimes I stare at them in this weird way and they'll be like, why are you staring at us like that? And I'm just like, y'all have no idea. Like God really blessed me with y'all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Darnell says, for the man, choose God and fear God. Let him guide your steps in his divine order. And ladies, choose a man who fears God and not in words, but in actions. And that's where a healthy family can be built.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Thank you, Darnell. That was a
Thank you for
great
that.
way to put a period on tonight because
Yes.
it's true, you know, and I think that that's it, right? We we tend to listen more than we watch the actions, right? But
Mhm.
if we pay attention to actions, those patterns are there and those
Mhm.
patterns don't lie, right? And,
Mhm.
you know, to make sure that when we see those red flags, that we pay attention, when our spidey senses or our gut is like going all crazy and haywire, that we pay attention, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, we've all been blessed with some phenomenal children, and here's to each of our individual tribes, as we kind of build them up to go out into this world, so that they too themselves can now make an impact. But again, thank you all so much for your time this evening. And I just want to encourage folks to follow Patchwork Human Services on Facebook, Instagram, and over on YouTube. Like the kids say, go to my YouTube channel and hit the like, subscribe, and share.
Like, like,
Yes,
share.
so subscribe to my YouTube
Patrick, who's that?
channel. This video will be posted there as well. But again, share it. I think that the content, the information, will definitely bless someone who may be in a situation of having to raise their kids primarily on their own, right? And so that's the key word tonight, primarily. So again, we're not taking away from if the opposite parent, helps out from time to time, or if they're sending you money. We're not discrediting any of that. We're talking about being the primary caregiver, because in that alone comes a ton of other sacrifices that the other party has no
Get that
idea.
piece off when you go right to the middle.
Right.
So, all right, y'all. Thank y'all, because I'll keep talking, and before you know it, we'll be at 2 hours and a half. So, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Ab.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, ladies.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you. And nice meeting you ladies also.
Nice seeing you, ladies.
You ladies as well.
Yes.
Absolutely. Good night.